Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's been a very, very busy day. And it's hot and it's muggy. Been very busy. Had some calls and all kinds of stuff. Anyways, so there's something that happened in the news today that I felt it was worthy enough to make a video about. I don't want to sound like some kind of Canadian doom and gloomer, hint, hint, but I do think that this may be pretty significant. And it's in regards to World War III and what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and NATO and the United States. And I know that probably a bunch of you have already grown tired of this subject because, as we've learned over the last 4 years, they like to drag everything out as far as they can just so that people get tired of it. You know, they become complacent. They're just, anyways. So, since Russia invaded Ukraine, there have been several attempts, not really good attempts, but several attempts to come to some kind of ceasefire or peace negotiations. All of these attempts have gone through back channels, diplomatic channels, that sort of thing. Today, or maybe it was last night, there's time difference, but you know what I'm saying. In the last 24 hours, that all changed, and I believe that this is significant. Vladimir Putin on TV in a, like what the president would do at the Oval Office kind of thing, did a public speech, all, fancied up and everything. And he laid out a plan for peace with Ukraine and offered it to them. This is the first time that Vladimir Putin himself publicly has offered a peace plan. Almost immediately, NATO and Zelensky said absolutely not. Not going to happen. And of course, the plan that they laid out was extremely favorable to the Russians. And so it was, I didn't figure they would accept it anyways. But the point is that for the first time, Vladimir Putin himself has offered this peace plan publicly. Now, follow me here. And I could be wrong. I may be wrong on this. I know there's a lot of other things to talk about. Maybe you'd rather hear about those things. But in the last 2 to 3 weeks or so, things have escalated a lot over there. We've got us and most of NATO giving Ukraine permission to use long-range weapons inside of Russia, striking targets inside of Russia. NATO has given the full green light to using F-16s against Russia and has said that those F-16s will be based inside of NATO territory. So they'll fly from NATO territory into Ukraine and fight Russia. Russia has said if any of those planes strike Russia's assets, then they will destroy those planes and the places where they take off, even in NATO territory. Now, that's an Article 5 with NATO, technically. So then Russia has got their ships now just off the coast of Florida, doing maneuvers and stuff like down there. And they're threatening to give Cuba, potentially Venezuela, Mexico, other countries that want them, weapons, maybe even to the point of deploying nuclear weapons very close to U.S. borders. Things have been escalating a lot. And now we've got Putin himself, almost like this is your final warning kind of thing. It's not like, some, ambassador or whoever through the channels and then it gets released to the news that, oh, well, Russia offered another peace deal or ceasefire deal and Ukraine turned it down. This is Vladimir Putin himself publicly releasing this. And so it almost has the feeling of this is the final straw. The chessboard is set. And this is your final chance. Mosquito, get out of my face. This is your final chance to accept a ceasefire peace deal. Now, what does that mean? I've seen a few people online that claim that they have military background that gives them superior knowledge than everybody else. And I'm not putting anything down about the military, but as we've all seen over the last few years, there's always someone that comes out of the woodwork that claims, or maybe they legitimately are, and they tell you absolutely this is what's going to happen because I have all this really cool intel and then what they say is going to happen doesn't happen. So that may be this case. I fully admit it. I would take this with a grain of salt, but I've seen a few people online saying that their prediction, their belief, their intel, whatever it is that things will change this coming weekend or by the first of next week. Now, I'm not 100% sure I even believe that, okay? In fact, I'm probably about 98% sure I don't believe that. But definitely things are heating up. And I do fully believe that this situation with Putin himself publicly offering the peace deal is significant. Now, I know there's a lot of things going on. You know, they're trying to take water away from you. They're trying to feed lab-created food to our own military, weaken them even more. You know, they're pushing this whole transgender on children like you've never seen before. They're flooding across the border. The economy is in shambles. BRICS is growing at such a rapid pace now that it's just almost can't keep up with it. Came out today that trucking employment is in a downward nosedive, and it's following the exact same patterns as previous recessions. That's one of the markers, is the trucking business. And it's following the same pattern as hard recessions, 2008 and so on. So I know that there's a lot of things going on. and every one of them can be just as important as this. But this seems to be very immediate. And with everything that's happening, the video I showed you this morning of George Soros back in 2009 stating that it's already done. The U.S. economy, the global currency, the global petrodollar is already done. He said that back in 2009. He said people just haven't figured it out yet. Well, they're starting to figure it out. And when people start to figure it out and panic, one of the only solutions that our government can do is to, well, let's go to war over it. Because that's exactly the exact precise thing that's been done over and over and over again throughout history. And so here we are at this turning point, potentially, of World War III with Russia, which would include China and Iran and North Korea and whoever else. And America's asleep at the wheel for the most part. Our leadership is blind. I'm sure they're wanting it to happen. I mean, who knows? It might be beneficial to Biden in an election. I don't know. But it does look like it's happening. And don't be so sure that America could handle it. Because even America's own military analysts have said that America cannot sustain a two-front war. Well, how many fronts of a war would this be? If it's Russia and Ukraine and Israel that we're funding and Taiwan that we're sending, funding and sending weapons over and potentially fighting North Korea, potentially fighting China, come on. It doesn't take long to figure it out, that they could figure out, hey, let's all jump on this. It's like a big old dogfight. Let's all get in on it. And all of us together can take this thing down. Now, I'm not saying by any stretch of the means that means by this weekend, next week, or whenever it happens, that we here in the United States are in an immediate threat of us being struck by some kind of outside source. It's possible, whether it's nuclear or conventional, very possible, but probably still less likely than, or just not as likely. But that doesn't mean that things won't be crazy here. It doesn't mean that any type of operatives and stuff that are inside this nation already, or gangs or cartels or anyone else that's here and they're just waiting for the opportunity to do bad things, it doesn't mean that they won't activate. It also doesn't mean that the people won't panic. They see us jump into World War III, get attacked, nuclear weapons used, all these types of things, NATO countries being struck and hit. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be people panicking. And that's also a possibility. So while the immediate threat may not be to you and I, it's possible, but most likely not. The overall threat is still there. And we have to realize the long-term ramifications for this. Many of you, as including myself, look at this through biblical lenses of how this is lining up with end time prophecies and where we are in a timeline as best as we can figure. And I'm telling you, things aren't looking good right now. Hopefully, prayerfully, things will calm down and a solution can be found and peace can be made. But the way things look right now, it's unlikely. In fact, NATO, the General Secretary of NATO today, in response to Putin's proposal, said, absolutely not. NATO and Ukraine will not accept any kind of ceasefire or peace deal until Russia is completely, not destroyed, but completely out of the picture. Like there's no chance of Russia ever doing this again. So it looks like that they're ready to go all the way. The United States and a few other countries signed at least a 10-year security agreement with Ukraine, which opens the door. This agreement opens the door quite a bit for Ukraine becoming a member of NATO, which, whether or not that ever happens or not, just the fact that it's being talked about openly, whereas 2 or 3 years ago, it was still, oh, no, that's never going to happen. And if it does, that's decades down the road. Now it's like, no, we're working on that right now. That's just poking the bear even more. It's going to intensify this situation even more. And so my advice is to get ready. That doesn't mean go lock and load, put all your gear on and sit at the front step, waiting for things to fall out of the sky. That just means top things off. Maybe don't venture off away from home too far for the next several days, week or so. Make sure that the supplies that you needed are there. And just be ready. Have your plan ready. If something happens and you're away, what's your plan? If something happens and one of you are away and the rest of the family's at home, what's your plan? If people start panicking, what's your plan? If the grid goes down because some type of major cyber attack that coincides an attack is very likely also, what's your plan? You need to be thinking about this kind of stuff. This is becoming very real. And my opinion is we're way closer to a full-on conflict than we ever were during the Cold War. And what's amazing to me is that most of Americans completely are oblivious. During the Cold War, everyone was aware of it. Everyone was getting ready. Now they don't want you to know. They want you to be asleep. They want you to not pay attention. And that's exactly what people are doing. Don't be part of that. Pay attention, get ready, get your heart in order, get your family in order, get your house in order, and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.